Let's bring in Ben Domenech. He's the publisher of the Federalist. So, Ben, America's largest school district has decided to close down because the positivity rate for coronavirus in this area has hit an arbitrary number of 3% over a 7-day rolling average. The World Health Organization says 5% is probably the point at which you close the schools. What's going on here?
Well, what's going on is I think that in the aftermath of the 2020 election, the news media is finally waking up to the fact that Andrew Cuomo covers up his incompetence with a lot of bluster, that he just gets aggressive and angry as opposed to responding to what I agree was just very straightforward questions about what's going to happen. You look over across on the other side of the Atlantic, and you see in France and Germany, they're experiencing significant spikes right now. They're locking down a lot of things. You know what they aren't locking down and closing? Schools. And that's because we have all types of research now that we didn't have last spring and summer about the fact that schools are not a source of major spread of this coronavirus. That's something that is a good thing, and it's something that teachers should be able to respond to, and that parents should be able to respond to with a lot of optimism and hope. Instead, what we're learning is that one of the exceptional things about America, unfortunately, is the power of these teachers' unions politically to get what they want out of these scenarios, as opposed to putting kids first. And the prospect, I have to say, of kids losing an entire year of schooling to this type of false teaching of this blended learning and the like is really of enormous concern, not just to me, but I think to all Americans about the future that these kids are going to have if we don't turn things around.
Ben, I want to play one more soundbite of the governor. This is Governor Cuomo blaming all the New Yorkers. Listen.
If you socially distanced and you wore a mask and you were smart, none of this would be a problem. It's all self-imposed. It's all self-imposed. If you didn't eat the cheesecake, you wouldn't have a weight problem.
Ben, your reaction?
Was it self-imposed when Andrew Cuomo made the decision that put so many people locked down in nursing homes? That wasn't self-imposed. It comes from government. And in the same way that this decision about the school system in New York comes from government. It's not something that's self-imposed. Those kids didn't eat the cheesecake. This is not a situation where he can shift this off onto other people when the responsibility really is his. People are looking to our political leaders in this moment for responsible leadership, not bluster, not hiding from the actual consequences of their decisions. Instead saying, hey, we've learned a lot about this. One thing that we have learned is that schools can be open and that we can deal with this in minimizing the risk to children and in all sorts of different approaches that avoid them having the kind of level of fears that we had before we knew as much as we know now about this virus.
Like every columnist in the New York Times, Nicholas Kristof even wrote President Trump was right to say keep schools open. And in the New York Times story, they write today that kids need to be socialized. 1 in 8 kids are living in it with a parent with some type of addiction. And school is a refuge. It's often the only meal they get. They need the socialization at a young age. And McKinsey and Company, for those older kids, they need it too. They say that they will say, on average, they project that 1 million kids will drop out of school because of this prolonged remote learning. It is unbelievable that he will blame us for a worldwide pandemic that has brought to its knees 170 plus countries, and he says New Yorkers aren't worthy of him. The arrogance of a guy that missed 17 meetings with the White House on how to coordinate coronavirus aid and PPE, to sit there and say we are not worthy of him. Ben, I can't overstate how the lack of self-awareness and ego out of control, he is emblematic of that.
Well, and he's gotten away with it to this point because people like Nick Kristof saved their, acknowledgement that Donald Trump was right about something until after the election. Everything was in the context of, getting through this election from the perspective of the media. And I think that in this case, we're finally hearing the truth, which is that yes, this is something where, it makes us feel uncomfortable at the New York Times to agree with President Trump about something, but he was right about this, just as all the other people pushing for schools to reopen were right about this. And, Cuomo is not going to get away, I think, with this continued blame shifting. He's gotten away with it for far too long.
He's on a book tour, Ben.
People are waking up to the
reality.
reality.
He's selling a book every day.
It is pathetic. It is ridiculous. And keep in mind, he's about to get a $25,000 raise.
Yeah.
So it's one of these situations where, look, this is the worst kind of leadership that we could have in this moment. It's unserious. It's wrong. It's making decisions not based on science, but based on this kind of blustery attitude. And I hope that people are actually waking up to it, that New Yorkers will respond to it, and that they will push back against him to the point that he has to change his mind.
Maybe he should tell his brother to wear a mask, too, because his brother forgot to wear it for 7 months.
Ben, let's go to the other coast. Let's talk about California and Gavin Newsom. And we've discovered the hypocrisy of him going to that fancy birthday dinner for a lobbyist with the California Medical Association, the CMA. And not only was the lobbyist there, but apparently the CEO of the CMA, Dustin Corcoran, was there. They say they followed the state and local guidelines, but you look at this stuff and you think, wait, they're telling us we can't really leave our house, we got to wear a mask, we shouldn't travel and things like that. But when you look for leadership on personal responsibility, it doesn't seem you can look to the governor of California, who said a couple of days ago, yeah, I blew it. And you can't look to the California Medical Association either, because their top guy was sitting 4 inches from somebody on his left and somebody on his right.
I look at that picture, and to me, that looks like a nice Thanksgiving dinner.
It does.
Which is exactly the kind of
Which
thing
we can't have.
that he's not allowing Californians
Right.
to have. And so, I mean, it's the type of, look, this is Thanksgiving, the holidays, these are really important to a lot of Americans. It's a time when we can be grateful even after times of great and terrible challenge. I mean, that was the context, obviously, of the first Thanksgiving, which we at the Federalist have a series running about right now, the 1620 Project, about the Pilgrims, about the lessons we can learn from them. But in this case, Gavin Newsom's hypocrisy, I appreciate so much the woman who took these pictures. Because without these pictures, he would have gotten away with spinning this and with pretending like he didn't do anything wrong. The fact that we had someone who just, recognized the governor and said, that doesn't look right, and snapped a couple of these pictures that we can look at thanks to your colleagues out there at Fox LA. That, to me, is the highest level of hypocrisy. It should be called out. I'm
Ben,
glad
it gets
that
worse.
we have the proof
He
of what
lied
he did.
in his apology. He said it was an outdoor event. They don't hang chandeliers from trees.
I do want to say one word, which is that my sympathy goes out to the folks who actually work hard, I'm sure, at French Laundry and at all of the restaurants across the country that have been dealing with these challenges. The restaurant industry has been smashed by this, as you all know, and they're just trying to do their jobs right. And for him to kind of shift this blame or to pretend like, this was no big deal, or that,
we followed guidelines.
This is a situation that we should all be able to have the kind of meal that Gavin Newsom had. I think that we should all be able to do that.
If we had $450 for dinner.
I think we could all use a
drink.
That's what it comes down to.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think what people are upset with is just that he's preaching one thing and doing another. So.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Ben.